We are so excited that we had such an amazing day yesterday, full of presentations, full of laughter and talking and sharing of the meals. And we were really excited to be able to have our partners here, which really brought this event alive. And so, Dr. Rao, thank you very much for being here. And she's taken some time this morning. Oh, thank you. She's taken. Are we there? No. It didn't work for me. Or I don't. Is it working? It is working. Okay. So we're really excited to have Dr. Rao here and Vinny here to talk a little bit about CBT, right? Okay. Okay. Perfect. Here we go.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much. And good morning and a very warm welcome to day 2 of the session. And thanks a lot for the introduction. Go ahead.
Screen.
You can just enable extraction. Enable extraction. Yeah, you can enable them. Yeah. Just enable them. Yeah. So I'm going to seeing the theme for day 2 today. I'm going to thought on the board there, and we're thinking about what should be thought about inclusive education, and that's something that I was wondering over that as to what could be the thoughts and the next steps towards the inclusive education. So I'm going to be talking about the technology solutions that are built and adopted to implement something that helps in early childhood interventions in an effective manner, and bringing forth the various stakeholders, the children with difficulties and developmental delays, along with their parents to the fore. This is MSpark Portage, this is the ECCD app, and this is a platform, and this is envisaged as a mechanism by which we can provide early intervention services and solutions to children with difficulties and disabilities. Next slide, please. Next slide. So we built this and provided this platform basically to emphasize that people need holistic intervention and just not development and holistic intervention towards fulfilling all the areas and domains of development of the child. And it should be sustainable so that they can continue to provide those solutions on their own, especially the parents that we are targeting and the children that we are targeting. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. So what are the kind of problems or the challenges that we are trying to address here? One is basically the lack of access. As Dr. Rao yesterday mentioned, also during one of the panel discussions that we had in the presentation, that the fundamental issue that we have is access to quality care, especially in developing countries. So you can't find the forget about a psychologist or doctor. You won't be able to find them who can provide those kind of intervention and care to children who are in need. So there is a need for some kind of a solution by which we can go and reach out to the people who are in actual need. The other issue is the lack of holistic intervention. What we see is segmented intervention that is happening in very silos, targeting specific areas of domains of development in a child, but combining the entire areas of development, which I'll be talking about it a little later, is also one of the challenges that we have to think about in the child. Lack of visibility. So when we talk about parents, especially the parents of children with difficulties and developmental delays, they need to know as to where does a child actually stand, where is the child's progress, what is the development baseline of the child. So that's something that is not visible to a parent or a caregiver in most of the situations. The fourth thing is that we want to bring parents to the forefront, and they should be the champion of the development of their own child. This is just some of the data that is there from various sources, including the March of Times report, as well as the WHO and the Indian census reports. So we see there is the defect rates. You see 6 to 7 out of 100 have a defect, birth defect. We see developmental delays in 10 children, 10% of the children. The WHO also estimates that roughly around 15% of children get affected in developing countries, especially in the developing countries. And as per the census, the last census that we had in India, specific to India, almost 2% of the population has been counted as with disabilities. Next slide. So to target and some of the challenges that we brought about, the problem statements that we brought about, we have built and also started adopting at various places the MSpark Portage platform. This is basically, as a solution, it basically is on as an app, both on the mobile as well as on the web app. And it uses the Portage, the CBR Portage model, to provide a holistic intervention with all these formal steps from screening onwards to the intervention part of it. So you have screening, assessment, and the intervention. And this is the area that I was talking about. If you see on the right side, the tree here, this is what we call the rear tree, and which grows here. So all the areas of development of the child, self-help skills, socialization, language communications, motor, cognitive, and sensory development. So all of these areas are basically covered in a holistic manner and provide as an intervention. So what is so I'll just talk about the CBR Portage. The CBR Portage is a method, it's a methodology, it's a tool basically also, which provides all the gamuts of tools. In addition to that, it provides screening, assistance, and the intervention for children with developmental delays. And it is targeted at the early childhood. So normally it is 0 to 6 or 0 to 8 and it is precise. It's a home-based solution which can be adopted. I mean, it's naturally adopted, implemented in the child's home environment, natural environment, and normally done in conjunction with the parents and facilitators, who could be educators too, and at the child's natural habitat. And then once they use the tools and the toolkits, they use it with very minimal intervention from any outside facilitators. It provides visibility into the development baseline of the child, development gaps that are there in the child. So it helps them to identify where they are, and then helps them to identify. And this is done using the criterion reference data. The gaps in the baselines are using that, and it covers all the areas that I already mentioned earlier. It has the inbuilt tools for screening, assessments, and generating various reports and development other IPs for the child. It is basically the CBR Portage has been customized from another model. I'll just talk about that later. But it makes use of local resources for the intervention part and for all the teaching aids that are required for the child. So most of the materials are home. You don't have to purchase. It can be built home. And it has a teaching mechanism also for the child, which can be easily facilitated by the parent or any caregiver. So just a little bit of background about the CBR Portage, which is basically an extension and the strengthening of an existing Portage model that was developed in Wisconsin, US. And this has been strengthened to make it culturally and socially relevant to the needs of the geography here, India and the South Asian regions. A lot of factors that there have been added, including the resources. And the Portage access is being used globally. It has been used in several countries, across more than 120 countries for several years. And it can be used to assist child with both difficult and without developmental delays. And it makes parents helps the parents and we train the parents themselves get trained to provide the stimulation required for the child. And it is flexible and you can and it is flexible in nature that you can adopt other tools and methodologies to plug into the core system of the assessment and build your interventions on top of that. Next. So this is the thing. Who are the main? We basically require is basically targeted at parents because they are the primary caregivers and they are the primary people who are with the child. The educators and facilitators, we call them, they are there. The medical professionals, community workers especially, they are using it in a wide variety of intervention. We'll be providing those details also in a while where it's being used. I think we'll go to the next one. I'll talk about it. So this is just as a platform. This is both on the app, mobile app, as well as on the web platform. And we have basically a dashboard where you can, the facilitators can have called as a learning center. It's which the learning center basically guides the parents and whoever takes up the caregivers and educators to go through the process of the portage. There's a 10-step process of portage, screening and intervention on it. It's a self-guided process, and they get to learn and they get to access all the tools that are available for screening, assessments, formulating the IEPs, the baseline plans, and also the teaching cards are inbuilt. So as soon as they find a gap or a development, they can use the teaching cards to kind of start teaching and to cover those gaps, address those gaps. In addition, there are several other functions, resources, and guides that we provide to help them. And we also conduct workshops and other mechanisms. Yeah, these are some of the kind of tools that are the screening forms and reports and so on, activity cards. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the bigger impact. What we see is what we intend basically to reduce the secondary disabling conditions for a child, to address that as primary. Provide inclusivity and bring inclusion of the child into the environment of the school and to the community. Portage also has been envisaged to not only is built on the principle of family and the community. So they get included in that. And of course, it helps towards the NEP. I would request Dr. Rao to explain about talk briefly about more about the impact and the research findings.
Good morning, Namaste. I will not go into details because of the shortage of time. I'm sure those who are from US must be familiar with the Portage program. It was started as a part of the American Head Start program. And as a part of it, Portage spread in many countries. So what I did as a part of my research in University of Manchester, I Indianized, ruralized Portage to make it simple so that a lot can happen at family level. And the major goal of Portage is demystification, because even now we see a lot of right-hand therapists, left-hand therapists, this therapists, parents are really confused. So we want to do away with all that. There is a demystification of technology. It is transferred in simple and locally appropriate terms so that a lot can happen at family level, community level. And Portage, as Vinay said, we have a huge network from Japan to Guyana. People are working using Portage for early intervention. The most important aspect is there are two things. One is we don't have data on incidence data, because when we talk about data, we talk about two types of data. One is incidence data, the other is prevalence data. In many countries like India, we don't have incidence data because births are not recorded. Births are recorded only in terms of the physical quantitative, but there is no record of any high-risk pregnancies, high-risk babies. That is not recorded and that is not followed in many countries, including India. So what we see is by the time child comes to any intervention, it is always late in the day. Even age 3 is too late because they have to start right at the beginning, right at the time of birth, and it is very important to intervene to prevent all the secondary disabilities. And in countries like India, the prevalence rate, that is those who survive, that number is growing, and they have secondary disability conditions because they fail to get support in the first 6 years of life. So that is the situation what we see in India and Nepal, because I work in 8 countries. This is the same situation in many countries. So it's very important to intervene very early. So severe portage, it is as a book, it is like this, and I simplified it to say that 10 steps to portage, so that it's easy for parents to learn. And we trained Anganwadi workers, grassroots level workers, with just 5 steps to portage. So it is to win over them, and we have trained around 200,000 grassroots level workers, and they use portage, and the outcome what I see is they feel that they can do it. So World Bank supported a huge program. It is called Udisha Portage, where we trained about 40,000 grassroots level workers in Karnataka. So it is possible to train a large number using an inverted pyramid model, like each one trains 10. So it is also known as an AD model, where one facilitator trains 10 more persons, and there we can reach in geometrical proportion. So portage impact studies have been conducted in many countries, including India, and it's an excellent approach to see that it has SOMA features. It is specific, observable, measurable, achievable. So it has scientific precision. That is the beauty of the portage, and most of the early intervention curriculum or packages what we see, it is taken a bit here from bit from there. I feel it is very important for us to see that portage without dilution, if you take it, and then we can always combine with indigenous practices of child rearing, identify the good practices. It is different in different countries. Build on that, a lot can be achieved. Technology, we have many gods in Hinduism. There's a one god who manifests in 10 different ways. I feel technology is 11th manifestation of the god. So we should make optimum use of the technology. So Vineet is also a parent and is also a technocrat. So it was a very good combination when we requested Vineet could come out with an app and an application on web on portage, and for any more. And we have university programs in Bangalore University. We have portage training programs. People can enroll on that, and we also have programs in Karnataka State University. We also work with University of Washington, Seattle. So now we'll be working very closely with DISES, that is our plan. So we are going to really work together. So none of us are as good as all of us. So together we can achieve a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Dr. Rao already mentioned that I'm a parent, so it was my experiences as a parent and what kind of a need that I felt. That time there was no app, so I just felt that okay, the methodology that we used should be brought about for more and benefit more parents who are in need. So that's why we kind of tied up and collaborated with others, colleagues who also basically are into this inclusive education. Actually, you'll be meeting one of them today. During the afternoon session, and you'll be also there with children also coming
In the school.
Yeah, tomorrow too. So with this, I think we'll go to the next slide. Yeah. So this is about us and how we kind of our journey and what. So if you need, you can contact us.
Maybe, are there any questions that anyone has?
Good morning, ma'am. This book, this assessment tool, is it available, ma'am, or how do we get
Yeah,
it?
it's portage. In fact, we don't give portage as a book because portage without training, there is a chance of misusing the book, because unless people are trained, they won't be able to use it. So the manual comes with training,
Okay.
and I'm very happy. Very soon, Identity Publisher is also publishing the books. It will be available along with training. So, and it is available in 9 Indian languages and 7 South Asian languages. It is also available in Japanese. So portage is available, and different countries have different versions of portage, where The core portage remains same because it is science, we cannot change it. But the adaptations to the local culture that one can see. So we have Japanese portage, we have African portage, we have Jamaican portage, and here we have Indian portage, that's where I have taken the Asian cultural practices. It is available.
Okay, we have to contact you now?
Yeah, you need to contact CBR.
And do we have, as you told, some training is available to, is it a certificate course or something?
Yes, it is a certificate course. It is an online program. So we train even teachers. Even we have pediatricians who undergo training. So this is one program where I have at least about 10 to 20 pediatricians who undergo portage training. So we train pediatricians, we train therapists like physiotherapists, speech therapists. We also train teachers and we train parents. Our focus is a lot on parents. Parents from the remotest tribal areas, we train portage in the way they understand. So it is very important for us to train the people like you as facilitators so that you can train people locally in the local language.
Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday, that is what I was talking. Language should be enabling, but it looks like it is disabling. So we have to really use technology, animation, so that language should not be a barrier in learning. So we have to, I was looking at something like artificial intelligence, whether it can do away with the dependence and language and learn in a different way. We were discussing about these issues. Thank you.
And how do we get access to this NSPARC? And that is
You
a
just-
part of this only, yeah?
Yes, if you are a part of it, you just send us an email.
Ah,
We have just one
because-
email away.
Yeah, I missed the initial part, when sir was introducing about it, I just came in between, so I.
No, you just send me an email.
Okay.
Then you will get connected with Portage.
Oh,
Portage India and also Portage.
thank you. ma'am.
It is a huge network. It is there in many, many countries.
Okay, do you have any other questions or comments anyone would like to make?
Thank you so much for coming. I wanted to know, in your opinion, what is the most difficult part about working in the remote areas?
It's a very loaded question. I think we should have another 3 days discussion. So, 76% of India's disability population, they live in rural areas as per the population census of 2011. And though there is a rapid urbanization, in spite of that, we see that a lot of people are moving from rural to urban, and a large number of people who stay back in villages are people with disabilities. So, these demographic changes are a huge challenge for all the countries, including India. So, it is a huge challenge because in rural areas, there are challenges of lack of facilities like professional support, primary health care, and support that could be available closer to the community. But there are some plus points in the rural areas. They have less stigma, more acceptance, and life is simple. Where especially I come from the specialization with intellectual disability, we could find a large number of people with intellectual disability well included into the society, which I don't see in rural areas, urban areas. So we need to really look at transferring the technology in a way the rural people can understand. Even with rural, it's diversity because we work in say tribal areas, in Himalayan mountain areas. It is different. Like when we talk about accessibility, it sounds like a joke because the entire terrain is inaccessible. So talking about a ramp is something. It doesn't work because we are planning at for the CBSE schools, we see that it doesn't work. We have to come with solutions which is relevant to the local context. I think, don't read me wrong, I feel we need to learn a lot from the community, follow the community, respond to their needs, then we find solutions. If you go with ready-made answers to the local rural community, tribal community, we fail miserably. We should not go with the idea that we know their problems, we know the solutions. I think if we go with partnership where to learn from them and help them to find solutions, a lot will come on. And I'm sure that you all have heard Mr. David Werner of if there is no doctor helping healthcare workers learn, disabled with their children, who is in Palo Alto, with whom I work very closely, also with Dr. Hernandez. It's very, very important to work for the parents. Parents, even illiterate parents, they have a lot of value to offer. They know the child, even than the most qualified professionals. I think if we go with mindset, we can change a lot. I think rural areas are really challenging, most challenging. Even I know even the US, because I was chairing the World Bank, GPDD, I was surprised to see the number of rural areas within US. I thought US has no rural area, but then I said we should work together. Rural America and rural India, we have a lot to share, so we should work. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Please stay in touch with us. We love to work with all of you.
Vinny, did you have any last words?
No.
Okay. I just want to say thank you. We are so honored to be able to partner with CBR for this conference. We're going to have just a few minutes, about 3-4 minutes, to move into our next interactive workshop part of this conference. And so I want to challenge you all to do something that might be outside of your comfort zone. So I always tell my students there's 3 levels to learning. The first one is to stay in your comfort zone. The second one is to push through fear. And the third one is to get to growth. So I am asking you to get outside of your comfort zone. I see that 2 people and groups of people that I've seen sitting together throughout this conference. I'm going to ask you to separate from the person that you have felt most comfortable at the conference with and find a table with 3 to 4 people. So get into table groups of 3 to 4 people who you haven't spent as much time with. Okay, does that make sense? And because this is going to be a really wonderful interactive activity, and if we could try to mix up countries and things like that, I think that we're going to get a lot more out of this activity. And Dr. Rao and Vineet, I very much hope that you will participate in this part of the conference because I think you've got so much to give to this next conversation. So we're going to start exactly at 9 because I'm like that. And so please just make yourself comfortable or uncomfortable, and I will start in just a moment.
I'm not sure I understand. What's that? So that next slide on the slide deck now, yeah, the one after breakfast. Now we can go to that one. It's like a chart.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, the one that I had sent you. The one with like the breakfast thing, but I just put it all under one together. Not that one.
No, this is yeah. Oh, yeah. Either one. Either one. What is the function target?
You're going to need that visual help, so make sure that you use 2 people. It's a interactive. So there's a table over here.
Yeah.
that is called IMSPARK.app. But what we do is we normally take it through a training program, formal training program. It is online. The training is online. Even it's a learning thing, but we recommend that to go in conjunction with the training. There is a facilitator-led training, master-led training. We could not you have a details? Yeah, you can contact her. Yeah. Then you can contact her, and then normally then we take it over from there. Actually, we are normally contact regular, so we have currently not much going on. So parents not going on. So that will get over in July it will get over. So we plan to start another batch by probably September. Most probably September.
All right, I love it. It's coming
Yeah,
together.
September we'll have a sorry. It is probably basically it depends on the level of training. So for parenting training, it's mostly about kind of awareness of all the processes related to protein formation. I'll show you so that you get an idea. So this is a curriculum. So we have this the introduction. Then we have introduction to holistic development. So we basically depending on the level of the training, this can get in depth. We cover the DDST, holistic development, gaps in development, screening. So screening is the first step. So we use the screening. This is not a non-medical. So for any medical intervention, it's part of the screening. So then we have this child abuse. Then this is the main thing, the development of the baseline. So we use the criteria.
All right, thank you so much. So we have a table here with one person who would love to have somebody else to jump in. Maybe this is a great table for you up here. And those of you who just walked in, we've got 2 more seats available for this table up here for our group of 4. All right. So we need groups of 3 to 4. So make sure you're at the table with 3 or 4. And I challenge you to find people you haven't spoken with so much at the conference. All right. So during each one of our, if we could come back together now, thank you. I did. See, I brought you with people you haven't spent as much time with. So just tables of 3 to 4 people. So if there's 5 people at your table, I'm going to gently and kindly ask you to find a different table. There we go. We're coming together with tables of 3 to 4. We have 1 more person available at this table here. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So during each one of our tea breaks and lunches and breakfasts, we've had a prompt up at the front and paper on the table. And you'll see that there's white pieces of paper on your table. If you could each take one of these pieces of paper. Right here, they look like this. Okay. So one of the reasons for the prompts is that we really wanted people to think deeply about the topics that we were going over, so that this wasn't just a performative, passive conference where information kept coming in, but that you had an opportunity to really think about and dialogue around the different topics that you were learning about, and being exposed to. These are reading glasses, so there we go. Now let's see them. Okay. And so we had different questions, some about what inclusive practices meant to you, what you wanted to get out of the conference, opportunities for you to share about your different areas and contexts that Dr. Rao was just talking about in our last presentation. What we were hoping to do today is really go into thinking about sustainability, thinking about how we move from merely talking about something to making actual change, which is really the hard part. It is fun to come to these conferences and sit at tables with, Dr. Brown and I were talking yesterday, it's like an echo chamber. We all are like, yes, we need to do more inclusive education. Yes, we need to think globally, right? We're the group that sees this and understands it and is excited about it. But now what we need to do is we have to go back into each one of our communities and make this real change. And so we really wanted to, as we were planning this conference, we wanted to think about ways that we could help facilitate that happening, that we could really jot down these reflective ideas so that when we get back home, we don't forget, we take something away with us to really facilitate that change. Could you go to the next slide? So what is the future you envision? And that was the prompt for breakfast today. I don't know if you saw it, but that was our prompt. So our next slide is going to be a personal reflection when we get there. And it is really you thinking about, okay, now I got to remember my slide, but you're going to go very holistically, kind of globally, and then your region, and then your school, and then yourself. And so this part is very introspective. So make sure you don't have more than 4 people at a table. So if you can find a table, and we've got 5 over there, and we have 3 more people here. So maybe we start a new table just over here if we can, where Nicole is. Thank you, Nicole. And so there it is. So I want you to think about at your country level, region level, school level, and your self level, what are the assets that are there? What are the good things that your country, your region, your school, and you bring to the table when we're talking about inclusive education? The next one is, what are the challenges your country, your region, your school, and yourself have when we're talking about inclusive education? And then what are the priorities? Okay, so I'm going to be quiet and move people around so that we don't only have 4 per table. I know, I'm like that. I want you to kind of fill this out on these wonderful white pieces of paper that I've put on each table. And then we'll go into the next phase in just a moment.
Yeah. My name is Carrie. I'm from Virginia. What's up?
There's lots of paper there.
So the next phase is when you're going to be talking to each other about it. So if you could just all individually fill out this lovely sheet, and then you will be, I promise you will be talking to each other and learning from each other. Okay, so I'm hearing murmurs and seeing people speaking around the room, so I think we're ready to move forward. As we mentioned in the opening, one of the things about DISES is that we create, there's a table just over here with Nicole, if you want to join that table. Ma'am, can you just walk in? So one of the things about DISES is when you join DISES, we really consider this kind of a global family. You're a little bit stuck with us because we actually care and love you just for showing up. But that also means that we have the opportunity to really learn and grow, which I know my family has helped me learn and grow in many ways in my life. So the reason I have you in groups of 3 to 4 is the next slide is you're going to learn from your DISES family members, friends, from at least 3 at a table. That's why, there was 4 of you at the table. You're going to learn about the other assets, challenges, and priorities at the table. And that's also why I asked you to try to mix up countries and everything. That way we get to as much of a global understanding as possible. And I think Dr. Rao did such a wonderful job, and Vineet earlier this morning, really kind of setting the tone for us really thinking deeply about this, and understanding that even in our own countries, just going from like the rural and urban areas, there are so many complexities and nuances to this conversation. And so I get that if you flip that paper over or need another piece of paper to write, I think that there's a lot of information that we can glean from this, but it's kind of a reflection about what we've really learned here from our friends and family members in the DISES community. So now at your tables, I'm going to have you each speak to each other about what it was that you reflected on, and so that we have a nice, beautiful, written down piece of information to help prepare us for our next step. So we're going to take about 15 minutes to have everybody share at your table and take notes on some of the things that you hear, because we're going to be analyzing the information because I'm a researcher, analyzing the information that we learn from each other. Okay? Does that make sense to everyone? Okay.
I think in Australia, I think one of the assets of the United States is to have a history of advocacy. So I think it has a smooth path, but I do think because of that,
You should have been doing some
very strong policy. Yeah, right. Similar table histories too. Population. Yeah. We've got a lot of other
रवि आशीष से बात हो गई। चलो मैंने आपको नंबर दे दिया, टेक्स्ट मैसेज कर दिया, ठीक है। उनको बोलना मेरी सोनू भाई से बात हुई थी, जो हमें लड़के भेजने इलेक्शन के लिए, ठीक है। और जो भी आपको मन में डाउट है, डाउट क्लियर कर लेंगे। जो हमने लड़के भेजने हैं ना एमपी इलेक्शन के लिए, उसके लिए पूछा गया, मेरी सोनू भाई से बात हुई थी, तो मैंने आपका नंबर दिया, जो भी डील कर लो इनसे कर लो, ठीक है। ये मतलब बात कर लो कैसे क्या करेंगे पेमेंट का। सोनू भाई ने बोला पेमेंट करने की, चलो आपका मैं हफ्ते 15 दिन में करवा दूंगा, ठीक है। और बच्चे कब निकालने कैसे निकालने आप आ जाओ, मैं कभी बच्चे लेके आ जाऊँगा, ऐसे बोलो। चलो बात करके देखो, मुझे बताओ क्या कहते हैं। काम करके बढ़िया लगा। हेलो हाँ रवि भाई, उठा लेंगे अभी। सो सा रहा होगा ना, लेट उठता है, रात में लेट सोते हैं ना। कोई नहीं, अभी टाइम हो रहा है 9:30 हो रहे हैं, आप 10-11 से कॉल कर लो। मैं हाँ हाँ, मेरी बात सुनो, मैं उसको कॉल करके बोलता हूँ, आपका फ़ोन उठाएगा, ठीक है? मैं बोल रहा हूँ।
Make sure there are people at your table that, they haven't had an opportunity to amplify their voices, make sure that everyone at the table is able to. We still have about 7 minutes, but I just want to make sure everyone's voice is being heard. Whether it's
और अभी भाई हो गई ठीक है क्या बोले ठीक है ठीक है पेमेंट की मैं बात कर लूँगा इससे ठीक है मैं 10 दिन की देख लूँगा 10 डेज की पेमेंट है हाँ ठीक है ना उनको बोलना मैंने सोनू भाई के भी मांग लिया आईडी प्रूफ आप भी मुझे अपना आईडी प्रूफ दे दो और इलेक्शन में मेरे ख्याल से 12 बच्चे लग रहे हैं 6 का ग्रुप बनेगा इलेक्शन का चलो बाकी बात कर लेता हूँ सर पेमेंट की बात करके ठीक है अब बोलता हूँ कॉल कर लेगा ठीक मैं थोड़ा सा बिजी हुआ मीटिंग में हूँ इवेंट चल रहा है उनका होटल का तो मैं ये करता हूँ कॉल ठीक है मैं आशीष को बोलता हूँ कॉल कर लिया मैं आशीष से बात करूँ आपको 50,000 डलवा देता हूँ ठीक है हाँ ठीक है 50,000 आपको डाल देगा आशीष भाई रोहित का फोन है साइलेंट वाले का आप इनको बोल देगा थोड़ा इसका पेमेंट का 10 दिन का देखना ठीक है हाँ 10 स्पॉट पेमेंट करवा देना इनको और इसका थोड़ा 10 दिन का देखना पेमेंट का वरना ठीक है नहीं अपन इनको 10 डेज में देंगे फिर डेली बेसिस पेमेंट देंगे नहीं डेली में ना फिर बचत नहीं दिखेगी ना तो पहले वो डेली बचत नहीं होगी शेयरिंग नहीं आ रही है तो वो क्या करेगा रही रहेगा 10 डेज में दे दो ठीक है मैं क्या हाँ डेली फिर अपने उसको बोल तू डेली ले ले और अपने डायरी में नोट करते रहने तो हम लोग को 20 के हिसाब से पेमेंट देंगे सीधी सी बात है तो डेली लेते ऐसे चले तो अपना बचा हाँ अगर डेली की सिर्फ
Okay, I know there's never enough time to really talk and get to know each other. So we do have another phase, but and raffle items at the end. So if we could come back together. And maybe if a few people could just share what's something interesting or exciting or something that just kind of like sparked your heart that you heard in this discussion with each other. Does anyone want to start?
So we had 3 countries represented, United States, Australia, and India, and
I think they may be the top one for, but we'll see, I mean, there's a little competition here, but okay, go ahead.
Given that, 3 different countries, and especially, geographically and among other things, there was a lot of similarities in what we shared, especially around equitable outcomes, about not serving certain populations. We talked about indigenous populations in particular, but certainly other ones, having resources but not necessarily distributing them equitably. So I thought it was really interesting how similar things were, even though 3 different countries represented.
Wow, thank you. All right, someone from this table? Oh, also, how many countries? 3. So they understood the assignment, as the kids would say.
So even though I'm in the United States, I do all my work in another country, so that's, I only did one of my 3 countries. So I only talked about one of them. So we had the United States, Nicaragua, and India. And I think that the biggest, that I got out of it is the challenge is that implementation of no matter what we're talking about, whatever it is that we want to work on, it's, for Lisa, it was implementing how to get best practices and research implemented into school and get that to go versus for some of us, it's the laws and how to get those implementations. So the implementation seems to be
Thank you. Yeah, so the similarities, the implementation. Somebody from this group? How many countries? 2, okay. USA and India. And India, we have the assets, we have diversified cultures, and in USA, the law of 1975 and least restricted environment, which we are striving to achieve now, but we are not there yet, because I worked with students who are visually impaired, and I always thought, how do people walk on the footpaths where, sorry to say this, but it is the fact that we have a lot of obstacles in the footpath, and even bikes, two-wheelers go on footpath, and it's horrible. When she told about the least restrictive environment, we are trying to achieve it. We are not there yet. But we have some good things like very different cultures, and we respect each other, culture and religion. So these are and very cooperative parents. Most of the parents are very cooperative, and we tell them something to do. They are very sincere and they do it. And but only problem is they come to us very late. After the diagnosis, they wait for something, thinking that the child will be okay, and they get lots of things like, my son walked early when he was 3. My daughter walked only when she was 6, and all sorts of things. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, the obstacles that we have to overcome, the legal, the social, the environmental obstacles are definitely not easy. Somebody from this table?
I saw your hand go up, so there you go. Something that she was going to. Okay.
So, Rebecca, to be frank, we've had a lot of discussion, and we were so much into the discussion that we really missed out on the pointers and the templates that we gave. But the good thing was that we did not limit ourselves to just those points. Of course, when we discussed, those were in our mind. We are 3 countries here today. So we are talking about all the scenarios and situations in our countries in respect to each of where we are placed and geographically located. For me, if I talk about inclusion and diversity, India in itself is a country which I just mentioned, where unity in diversity is known for its unity in diversity. And the illustration, how you've made us sit and come out of our comfort zones. This itself is a way of inclusion, because I'm a developmental sector professional, I'm not a special educator. So for me, this is my inclusion, to have a table, and not just to be at the same table, but also to keep my voice forward. So when we speak about inclusion, thank you. So when we talk about inclusion, it's not just to be at the same platform, but it's also that you have the right and you use that right well.
Thank you. Yes, we were talking yesterday about that amplifying voices, and I love the fact that you put out there the importance of going into seeking out rooms that aren't just your own. And that goes for us as professionals, and then inviting people who wouldn't necessarily be in the room naturally, and showing them a sense of belonging. So thank you. Okay, so this is our last activity, and I'm going to give you as much time as I can, but as I mentioned before, so I got my doctorate in 2011, and it was on culturally responsive practices. And I remember in 2014, when I read an article by Django Paris about culturally sustaining pedagogies, and I was blown away. And the reason why is he says in his article, listen, it's not enough to say, hey, I honor other cultures, I honor other genders, I honor other languages, I honor all regions and socioeconomic levels. It's not enough to say that. We have to create systems that continue to sustain the change that we want to see. Okay, now I gotta bring God in there. Be the change you want to see in the world, right? Okay. I know you're right. I understood the assignment. Okay. So right now, I want you to take a moment. So if we keep the room quiet, because we want to think about all types of learners right now. Okay, so some people can handle a little bit of chatter going around and they can still think. Others can't. So let's be really mindful of the people who actually need the quiet for at least 5 minutes. We're going to be quiet and writing. And here are some gentle prompts. You don't have to follow them exactly, but just on how to create a sustainable plan. So one, you would need an explicit goal. Another, you need to think about who you might involve in your plan. Who needs to be at that table? Whose voices need to be heard? Who needs to be invited from outside your own community to really make it impactful? You want to think about what resources you need. You know, and when Dr. Brown and I were also talking yesterday, and we were saying, you know, all around the world, every school, every classroom, every educational environment where we get professional development, it's always the same 3 to 4 responses that we get on reasons why people can't change. Time, money, and support, and capacity building. I wasn't trained. So right now, you are getting at least 5 minutes to think about how you can address these things. And I'm sorry, we don't have any money to give you. We have a few raffle prizes at the end. And we have the capital of each one of us that each one of us brings to the table here. So the next one is, what steps do I need to take? And then how can I be accountable during this process? If you look at motivation theory and like goal theories, then one of the number one things that makes people either successful or unsuccessful is accountability. Some sort of check-in system that you have either with yourself or your community. It could be the people at your table who you decide in a month, we're going to email each other and we're going to check and see how we're doing. And then in another month, we'll email each other again. Okay? So I really do want you to come up with community at the end of this session. And then the last one we're going to talk about, it's bringing that theory, reflecting on it, bringing it into practice, reflecting on it, bringing it back to the theory, deciding what changes need to be made. So that's that praxis that I want us to really think about moving into. Are there any questions about what we're doing for the next silent 5 minutes? Okay, I will set my timer. if you want to finish up what it is that you're writing. You want to finish up what you're writing. And then at your tables, I unfortunately only have about 5 minutes, so if you could each take about 1 minute to share what you wrote. And then also I would highly recommend whoever's at your table that you do get each other's email and that you try that in 1 month, check in with each other. But we are going to share out, so we've got about 5 minutes to share out with your table, each person 1 minute. And then those 4 tables that haven't spoken yet, we are going to have you at least give 1 little nugget from your time together, okay? So we'll start that 5 minutes now.
I was here for that. Yeah. Her video was great. Oh, yeah. That was great. Yeah.
Can we test out, there's on the next slide, well, this is the last slide for right now, but the next slide for lunch, any slides, or maybe it's on 2 slides. No, I can keep going. And this slide, there's a video here. Is it loading maybe? Or this, did you download this? This isn't the live one. Yeah, so this is the only one. There's a video we need to play, so we need to test out whether we can play that. So it's on that, if you go back to the Google slide deck that I sent to you, you should be able to play it from there. But you won't, it wouldn't show up here.
There's a video there.
Yeah, so you have to just go back to the Google slide, and then from the Google slide, you should be able to find it. And we should test that out before we get to lunch, so that in lunch we can just play it, no problem. Okay?
Oh, yeah. That was good. I like it for you.
ಅದು ಮಧ್ಯಾಹ್ನಕ್ಕೆ
ಅದು ಮಧ್ಯಾಹ್ನ ಇದು ಈಗ ಅಲ್ವಾ ವಾಪಸ್
Okay, if there's anyone who hasn't been able to share, we've got another minute for each person to be able to have their voice heard. Okay, I recognize I once again have not given you enough time, and we could continue to talk about this for quite some time. So as I mentioned before, I hope that you do exchange email addresses and continue this conversation online long after the conference. But we're gonna go around to those 4 tables that I haven't made it to yet, and we're gonna hear about something that in this session has sparked some joy in your heart. So who would like to speak at this table?
You mean the first one or the next? And the whole session, you get the whole thing.
I'm from South India, Chennai. Thinking of inclusive, that is being, when I looked at the points on the dream, I'm sure the person who's with me from our school will say, I've been dreaming this. And I don't know how far we can get. I only get negative input when I go to the community, like doctors or even CSR people or anybody. He says, no, this is a dream. You have to come to reality. Because when I say, let us have a classroom where the teacher is equipped not only to handle the reading and writing problem, which we all see as dyslexia, but there are other problems. Attention, not able to behave well, an emotional problem which he brings from home, or the current big rush, the ASD. So they say you're bringing only problems. I said, yes, I'm coming with problems. By God's grace or what, I don't know, we've been blessed with land, but no building. So this is the second step. To get that up, and my dream is every country or every state must have a model school where teachers will be fully equipped, and those who want to see how it is can come and learn and practice and be with them. I think hands-on experience is what teacher training should give us, not 5 days, 6-day courses, online. Online I like, but it made me cry during the online courses. I wanted to touch the lady whom I was teaching and say, no, please look at the child. It is not possible. So this is my dream, and I think we as people involved in the field and being here to share must meet more, not only learn from our country, other countries, other states. We, as somebody said, we are so culturally different. Respecting the culture. I cannot just take anything US or England made or anything and just swallow it. It's not a tablet to be swallowed. It has to be made to our needs of the children. And that is what I pray and hope all of you are there. And my reflection is, even I'm old, but I'm sure in a few years' time, the world should be able to get a place for children who are learning different. I don't like difficulty or disability, because all of us have some disability. I have a disability in the vision and I'm wearing glasses. Nobody asks me why. But when I cannot write or read, or when I'm not able to process and answer you quickly, my job is out. So we, in the field, I think we are small. I think every drop we put in is going to cost a ripple, and that's me.
Thank you, I love that. Who at this table would like to?
Sure.
I think at this table, one of the things that came up most was from the Indian side about the lack of data. And that seemed to be the biggest thing, that there is no data available on the number of children with disabilities or the type or the category of children with disabilities. And without data on the ground, from the ground, how can you advocate for change? How can you advocate for implementation? And also, I think she talked very eloquently about the universality of the changes, implementation across all platforms. So it cannot be only in schools, it has to be socially, it has to be outside in the community. And there is no point in parental advocacy just on the street. It has to be targeted, focused on the laws so that things change on the ground. And I think that is.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that if we just change things in the schools, but we don't change the faculty who are teaching, the teachers working in the schools, and really invite the parents in, as many of you have mentioned, that it's very hard to see this change happen. All right, someone from this table like to share nuggets of your conversation?
Well, something that I learned this morning from my colleagues here, really just the idea that for change to occur, it really takes things, it takes the mind, the brain, the intellect, and the consciousness. And so I just think taking that home is going to be very useful for myself, but also as I work with others.
Thank you, yes. All levels. So our last table here, who would like to speak on your behalf?
We had some fabulous conversations and incredible goals, but you all heard kind of what some of our DISES goals were yesterday, and I'm going to add to that, and I'm going to ask again for everyone's input as we move forward as an organization. And one of my collective goals with a team of phenomenal people is to really build a strong global network that is culturally responsive and sustainable in a variety of places, but the concepts are much the same, right? It's the constructs that are different. So we need to work together, and goal-wise, I'm going to invite all of you to a Google site page where we can start doing some networking and discussion, and I plan on hosting monthly gatherings via Zoom where we can start to really plot out what this should look like. And it's not my idea, it's our idea. It's a collective, and until we're able to do that and be strong together, this is never gonna, we're gonna just keep talking about it over and over. We've got to make that leap. So I can't wait to share in those conversations with you in the coming year. I didn't know you were going to be like added to the list, right?
So I love the theme of networking and also using collaboration to really develop ideas and action plans. One of the other reasons why we wanted to have this session, within our conference, was to make sure that these nuggets aren't being lost. When we bring multiple people to a table, then different ideas are going to come out, different challenges are going to, emerge, different solutions are going to emerge, and that hope that we all need so that we can continue to do this work, even though we are, encountering barriers and we are, at times feeling overwhelmed and tired. Because I know we've all felt that, just even the time zone changes and travel changes can cause that. But you know what? You all are here, and you've all been a part of this beautiful, beautiful community and conference. So I want to thank you for doing that. I've got one last thing that I'm going to ask you to do, and that is going to create some movement, because I think another thing that happens at conferences is we sit down in a seat and we become passive learners. I made you stand up and move tables earlier. Now I'm going to have you stand up, similar to like what we did at the very beginning where you introduced yourself to 2 new people. I want you to stand up, go around the room, find 2 new people who you haven't interacted with much, because maybe you have talked to every single person here, and that's great. And I want you to tell them some good things that you heard today. And then you'll sit down, because we do have that raffle here that we're going to have in about 5 minutes or so. So I will let you know when it's time to find kind of like musical chairs, find a seat so you can hear the raffle. But please get up, walk around, find someone you haven't spoken to much, and tell them about some of the good things you've heard.
Great job.
जल्दी आएगा ये ईमेल से ग्रुप में
फोटो कॉपी
problematic, it's not good for the environment,
ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಗಿ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ
ಅದೇ ಅವರು ವಿಡಿಯೋ
10-15 ತನಕ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇರೋದು 10 ಆಯ್ತು ಸರ್ 10-15 ತನಕ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇರಿ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಎತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಹೋಗಿರಂತೆ 10-15 ಹೋಗಿದ್ರು ಹಾ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಯಾರು ಬರಲ್ವ
computer with PowerPoint. So it's one thing is Zoom guy.
Thank you so much for giving us this audience. Really thanks for
I don't think there was that many people. I was late.
One more slide.
So you have one computer, I still owe you 2 people. You guys sleep okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I was thinking about that. Thank you. What is here?
Yes, ma'am.
Your picture looks like a Barbie doll. Oh my God. Somebody needed it more than me. Very philosophical. I can't be stuck in it. I'll talk to my dad, and my dad goes, "Well, you should not let that bother you. Move on."
So just sit down, just for wherever you are, you get your stuff as well. You can go around. So if we can come back together, I know that we're enjoying our conversations, and I love the conversation. So I gotta tell you, I heard some gems while I was wandering around and having my conversations. One of them that I loved was Dr. Rao, who mentioned, we also are able to talk about our failures. And I have to tell you, I have my doc and my master's students, my PhD and master's students. I always tell them, if you put in for a conference or you put in for a chapter and you get rejected, you call me immediately and we are going to celebrate your failure because you tried. And I think that is so important because we sometimes kind of downplay the fact that maybe we didn't get a grant or that we didn't get a job or that we didn't do these. But each one of those stages helps us, or we didn't get to finish a manuscript, which is also what Melissa, I don't know if she's still in here, and I were talking about is, those one manuscripts that you start, they're work years on, and then you're like, you know what, maybe this just needs to go away. And that is a celebration when you let go of that, because it opens up the possibility for more. And that's also what I'm hearing in this room. I feel, I'm a very energetic person. So when I feel the energy in a room shift and change, and in here right now, I can feel like this lightness from my core all the way to my neck. And it is just the bliss of being in a room with all of you, really getting to know each other. So I want to thank you for all that you have given me as a facilitator in this group this morning. So thank you so much. I am going to hand it off for the raffle, yay! But thank you all.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. Thanks for planning such a thoughtful morning. That was great. Okay, so we have 3 raffle prizes. So lucky you that you're here because you have to be here to win it. If I pick a name and you're not here, we're going to keep picking until somebody is here. That's how it's working today because we're not shipping these. So we have 3. The first one is actually the same book we gave away yesterday, Explicit Instruction by Anita Harpsher and Charles Hughes. Dr. Rao, will you choose a name?
Yes.
Oh, Melissa Grabner-Hagan. Is she here?
Nope.
Nope? Okay. Logan Flint. Logan. Nope. You snooze, you lose. Dr. Is it Pacini Venkatesh? Yeah! luggage tag.
Yesterday she took the picture because I got one copy from you. And she took a picture to buy that.
Did you really?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, our next one is a canvas bag with flags from all over the world. So, little hint for our next location. I actually don't know if the flag of our next location is on the bag, but. Abigail. Yay!
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, and our last one is this book, which these presenters are both here. So if you're a geek like me and want to get it signed, you could. This is Equitable and Inclusive Teaching for Diverse Learners with Disabilities, a biography-driven approach. And Socorro Herrera and Diane Rodriguez are both here. So I don't think they're in the room right now. I don't see them, but they are here at the conference and presented yesterday. This is the last one for this morning. We'll do more at lunch. Kalpana Das. Kalpana? Yay!
Okay, thank you so much. One last thing, at 11:30, we have a tea break. And so we'll be coming back in here, another opportunity for us to dialogue. This is our prompt, and you can see this lovely little figure. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It is the Duckworth's Wheel of Power and Privilege. And so it kind of goes through different identities that you might have. If you were in my session yesterday, we talked about intersectional identities. And so they are here as well. And you can see some of them would create more marginalization, and then others create more power. And so the question we'll be talking about at the tea break is, how does your own identity impact your teaching and program design? And how does your identity limit your knowledge? Okay? So if you want to come and take a look at this as you go about your next session and then come back to learn and discuss, we would love to see these wonderful conversations continue. Thank you all.
If Indians are pick up.
My laptop, how do I connect it? What is the best?
I can give you the.
It's a MacBook.
Yeah, we can connect your cable to your laptop. That is okay.
Is that okay?
I feel like you actually do have a taste of my work as well.
Because I know that you have access to get the flash drive, but then it's not convenient because this thing does not have a USB.
Did the day before yesterday?
We can try connecting the cable first.
So how would I connect?
Let's see if there is a no, looks like there is no such. Or do you have access to web internet?
Yeah.
You could send an email to.
I can send you an email?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I just email my presentation to you? And what is your email?
Me.me.
1 minute. Let me just forward this, okay? Forward to me. Dot.
Hi, we had the next session where, so we had the second presentation in the next session. You the first present, okay. So we had the second one, so should we just give you the thumb drive? Okay, I'll ask them to do that. Perfect. So what we'll do is I'll also be the timekeeper. So I'll give you like when it's half an hour. Each one of us have half an hour. So my question for you was, do you want to save the discussion and all for later, or you want to have these documents?
I will finish in 20 minutes.
You'll finish in 20 minutes and
I
then
will-
you'll do
yeah.
discussion. So when it's 5 minutes left, I'll.
Okay,
Thank you so much. And then
I'll
you
try
will
to
get the
finish
next
soon. Nobody likes it when it goes too long. Let it be short, right?
Yeah.
Did you get it?
Yes.
Something.
Okay, so this is all you. That's what it is. Yeah, I always put like a dress like this, because this is nice and mine. But I choose a like black dress, and then in the event that my life doesn't get there, I just buy scarves every day. It's like, people think it's different. I
Honey, can I leave these over here for you? You'll watch them? Can I leave them here?
Yeah. This is the second presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I actually did have one year. Where were we? We were in one of like rural, like Missouri, I think, or something like that. It happened, and like or something like that. Where anyway, I had to go way. This was 15 years ago. I had to go way out of town to a mall to buy clothes, so that I felt sort of everywhere. And then I got like this little makeup kit, and then. The airline did end up giving me, I think they gave me like, you guys made like 250 like shoes. And like, because you can buy like deodorant and toothbrush and all that, because I did not buy that. And anyway, so then they got Who were you with?
Actually, next is ours, but we have a scanner, we need to paste
No, I
it
think
somewhere.
actually,
So, I might be, because
So make sure you
we need, because one can scan QR, they can forward like CV this. I asked.
And so, yeah, I was like. Right. When you talk to her, you know, they're like, escort me. No, they do not. Fingers crossed. Thank you. Sure. Yes. I think I just have to provide your name and maybe your contact information and your bio. I'll double check, but yeah, so you're going to. Yes, so I have to turn this and like to black and then you'll get September 30th, and then I'm turning it over to the university. Then I'm just taking this in February. Maybe it's December and then February. Well, they want to.
ಶುರುವಾಗಿದೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನ ಆನ್ ಮಾಡೋರು ಎಲ್ಲೋದಿಲ್ಲ
ಹೌದಾ ಆ ಕಡೆನೇ ಬಂದ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ರೂಮ್ ಹೋದ ಶುರುವಾಯ್ತು ಈಗ
ಯಾರು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಹಾಕಕ್ಕೆ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ನನಗೂ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಇರಲ್ವಲ್ಲ.
ಕೆಲಸನಾಗ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ
ನಮ್ಮಂಗೆ ಇರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲವರು. ಈ ಕರೆಸ್ಬೇಕು.
ಬೇಗ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ.
ಆಟಿಸಮ್ ಮಕ್ಕಳದು ಒಂದು ರೆಸಿಡೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಅದೇ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆ ಇದು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಯಾವುದು ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಆನ್ ಕೋರ್ಸ್. ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಹೆಸರೇನು ಎಂಥದೋ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟು ವಿ ಇಂದ ಶುರುವಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮುಗಿಸ್ತೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಶಂಕರಪುರದ
ಶಂಕರಪುರ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಯಲಹಂಕ ಆ ಕಡೆ ಮಾತೃಶ್ರೀ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಮಾತೃ ಬ್ಲೈಂಡ್ಗೆ, ಇದು ಆಟಿಸಮ್ಗೆ. ನಾವು ಹೋಗಿದ್ವಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಚಂಪಕ್ನಾಥ್ ಅಂತ ಅರುಣಚೇತನ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಅವೇ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿರೋದು. ಬಿಯಿಂದ ಶುರು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಜ್ಞಾಪಕ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಯಾವ ಏರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿದೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ? ಯಾವ ಏರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿದೆ?
ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಮುಂದೆ ಇದೆ, ಇವ್ರದ್ದೊಂದಿದೆ KPMRC ಇದು, ಮತ್ತು ಅವ್ರದ್ದೊಂದಿದೆ, ಎರಡು ಹೋಗಿ ಬಂದೆ ನಾನು. ಯಾರೋ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಏನು ಮಾಡೋದು ಹೆಸರು ಬಿಯಿಂದ ಶುರುವಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಹೊತ್ತು. ನನಗೆ ಜ್ಞಾಪಕ
We were trying to keep but then we took away one of the assignments. We did all of the meeting. The university decides to go. Let me know that before saying she's qualified to teach individual tournaments. Yes. Dr. Jazz will not require EPA on sessions. But we were like, we need to write a EPA, but it's good practice. We're not going to mark it down, but we're going to help you become stronger writers. And so we're at the same time these students go out and work. And so then, they were like, she doesn't list it down in there anywhere. And I just had to, so over the years, I've been trying to colonize process and realize I was more stringent around institutions. Now I'm not stringent around. I like it. And they do. Like I just got an email from a student who needed to take your undertaking. Because I really don't know that this is when it's due. This is when it'll be great. The first round. They were like, why are they using it? It's so cool. It's like the keyboard yours. Yeah. So anyway, since voted that I wasn't ready. I actually did 8 years and I do more service and so it's one of those things where now I just no, and that's the younger ones, they use all of it. And I give professional developments, I create, like the state of Ohio was bringing me in as a keynote, created modules for that, based off me. Right. And all of this they would say this was there's only 6 people, but they the person in the department. She's the and my kids I want you to know that I can and so Right. Well, I have actually I have an executive coach that has also like she views recorded videos that we teach her and we take a look at them and come up with goals. Oh, I had, all of them are, the only thing is there's too much on my slide deck. Because I'll give like an example, so it's kind of work. Here's a. And but I also give students access to the slide deck and it's just like a good thing. So it is what it is, but it's I like this. And I love the fact that I was able to do open courses to like self-lessons. So fun. Like continuation high school, it's like, it is so exciting.
Although I
don't want to do, but actually, the most of the active parents I definitely have, once they get to that point. Oh, now they can start me right in.
Right.
Thank you for asking. Yeah. Well, I also. Not that they're just.
Coffee break 11:30 you guys are
And the states have to get so they added and say yeah, I didn't know that I was going to have 18 months and 1 year. So I had to close really bad. So I haven't talked about it. And anyways, it's what it takes unnecessary work. And then I went to chair of the and these students have taken these 3 classes prior to being here, where they're taking it in 3 injection. And they're really upset, and they're in a student teaching placement instead of again, and so they're not even in a placement for doing this type of assessment. And so it's not like they don't have the faculty for that. And so I can hear from everybody else, but just I got a corporate from that. None of, and then they wrote.
Remote or something I can use to change the slides.
And whatever I can change for you.
So if I cue you,
if you just look at me, I will just.
Didn't seem to see it as a problem, the committee. So, sitting outside of that solution.
Your annual evaluation, so that
Everything's
so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They won't. The public is not allowed to have a conversation, but there is. Like, it's so six people, the two of them are from my side. You just, and then like the others are like leadership people that are like, and people are required to take the course. It's not I choose the course. I'm required to take this.
That's always difficult too.
And I teach statistics. Yeah. It's like,
wow, you were just reading.
Yeah. So, and I even said I don't want to teach this class, and yes, that was the one thing that my colleagues were share. Is really needs to they haven't been learning.
So maybe I can start now. It is 10:30, so let me introduce myself, and
you might need to use the microphone.
No, actually it's okay because I have a loud voice.
And it's just
okay. Right. Yeah.
I'm the same way.
I use my hands a lot, so. Okay, so I'm Sudha Krishnan, Dr. Sudha Krishnan from San Jose State. And my field of research is inclusion and deficit assumptions about disability in schools. So I have to give you a little bit, I'm a qualitative researcher, and what I'm presenting today is part of my the research that I did last year. I have to give you a little bit of my background because a lot of my research is always, informed by my identity. And I'm a parent of a child with autism, not a child anymore, he's a 30-year-old adult, always will be a kid to me. And that has not only motivated my the questions that I seek answers to in my research. It has also motivated, it has kind of sharpened the antenna when somebody says something when I'm interviewing them, and I pursue that line of investigation. It is largely directed by my positionality, that is that of a parent advocating for my child with autism. And so even this research is pretty much, and I say that very explicitly, that when I was interviewing the professionals, educational professionals in the local school districts, I got interested in certain lines of, research that because of the things I heard from the various teachers and the paraprofessionals. So we can change the slide. So why do we need more information on inclusion? Though there are excellent laws in US, the legal mandates are really exemplary for students with inclusion. The reality is really dismal. It's disheartening. You can see that Kleinert says that more than only 4% of the students who had extensive support needs spent 40% or more time in general education. And that is a dismal statistic for the US. When we talk about inclusion in the US, often it is only about students with a mild to moderate disabilities, and mild to moderate extent of support needs. And the students with extensive support needs are often not included in that calculation. And so many percent, so 96% of students spend the majority of their time in special day classes or self-contained classes. That is where they are educated separately. So there is a real need to do more research on why there is so much difference between the theory, which says inclusion is so good for everybody, and the actual practice where many of the students are educated in self-contained classes.
The theory says that inclusion is better for all students, disability or not, right? Inclusion for students with extensive support needs is better and necessary for academic and social outcomes. And however, the reality is very different, and that is what I said to investigate. What is going on in the school districts? And I focused on the neighboring school districts in US. So I look at it as the tip of as an iceberg. You know, what we see in the IEP meetings and all the documentation in the IEP meetings is one thing, what is visible. And what we don't see is what really happens in the classrooms. And what happens in the classrooms tells the real story about why inclusion is so hard. So I already talked about, I interviewed about 18 professionals, 5 special education teachers, 5 paraeducators, 4 administrators, 4 general education teachers. The interviews were all semi-structured. They lasted for 45 to 90 minutes. And the results were transcribed. I used Envision software and I did the thematic analysis. And if I may be bold enough to say, I used grounded theory because I did try to come up with some theoretical, development after that. So there were 7 themes that emerged from my interviews. First theme was, those so-called open-minded teachers who included students. There was a theme was back of the class inclusion. Another theme was pushy parents, or when parents are viewed as problems, not as supports. Then you had who are those lucky kids who get included, and then what happens when a teacher does not want a student in the class, and paraeducators or paraprofessionals. And I believe that is a largely untold story. And at my table this morning, you were mentioning about paraeducators. It's an untold story. And special education is necessary is a belief that pervades the US educational school system, at least the neighboring schools that I interviewed. Those open-minded teachers, and this is what I want to emphasize in, the theme that arose as I interviewed the teachers, was that most schools believed that inclusion was possible only if the teachers are flexible and open-minded, right? And participants repeatedly emphasized the importance of inclusion with a few open-minded teachers. So who are these teachers? I probed more deeply. These are the students who welcome students into their classroom. They were willing to make accommodations. They included the students in classroom activities, were friendly with paraeducator who came in with the students. What is bad about this? What is bad about this is that there were a few teachers, and this was considered to be fantastic or out of the exceptional, right? Not the rule. But when we look at this is what every teacher is supposed to do. And it was like, hey, there are these 2 or 3 teachers who are like this, and we put all our students in their classes for inclusion. That is not inclusion. That is not inclusion, right? And I have some samples of my conversation. I don't think I have time to go through all of that, but just look at this. Participant says, it is always nice to have a teacher who is open-minded. So I asked, what does open-minded mean? Can you tell me more? Participant says, she welcomes our students, integrates them, smiles when they come in. And the other teachers, they don't do that? Not at all. Many of them don't even look at us. They don't talk. They don't care if you are there or not. That is not inclusion. That is not inclusion. And more, and the important thing over here is the participant says, in the whole school, we had maybe 2 or 3 teachers that we could send special education students to. And there's always the question of putting too much stress on them, right? These are the things that are happening in the classrooms, and this is why inclusion is not catching on. This is why there is a dismal rate of true inclusion. And then I think it's the same thing, so we can move on. So I was reminded of this wonderful article by Kozlowski, where she talks about the miracle worker syndrome. That why are special educators considered miracle workers? They should not. We are not miracle workers. We are not angels from heaven. It is a profession and it is supposed to be respected as such, right? So you cannot make the rarity of, special education, of general education teachers who accept special ed students and call them miracle workers. It only points to the ableism in society. It is not the miracle workers, it just points to how we have defined ableism and normalcy in our society. And inclusive settings are small islands in schools. At least this was what I found in my neighboring school districts. And it points to one reason why inclusive education is so hard to implement. It has not become the rule, it is an exception. And then I found that there was back of the class inclusion, where all the students who are included sit in the back of the class, sometimes near the exit, so that if they make noise, or if they are disturbing the class, they are let out faster. Nobody deals with their, what they have to say. We talk a lot about behaviorless communication. Nobody wants to hear what they have to say. You're disturbing the class, leave, right? They are not provided with modified worksheets, are not required to do homework or classwork, and that becomes an excuse for accommodation. How do you differentiate accommodating students and low expectations, right? It's a big difference. And they may spend 15 to 20 minutes in the class and then go back to their self-contained classroom, and it's considered that they have been included in the classroom. That is not inclusion, right? And minimum or no interaction with the teacher. And then these are some, conversational quotes from my interview. Well, we mostly sit near the door. We can leave after some time. I go in there. I don't even know why, said one of the paraeducators. I guess it's in the IB or something. I sit with my student for 10 to 15 minutes, keep her quiet, and then leave. Sometimes it's overwhelming for these students, right? So I tell the aide, this was a general ed teacher, come in, whenever you're ready, and then they can leave after a while. I don't mind that. And this is the miracle worker who is so accepting of the students. They can come and sit in my class, and I don't mind if you leave. I am so open-minded and flexible, but that is not inclusion, right? And then there are genuine concerns with general education teachers. And so it goes on, every statement that they made for me was so revealing of the ableism that existed in the local school districts.
Yeah, you can.
Then next slide too. And so again, I was reminded of a narrative by Kozlowski of In Their Place, that is, students with extensive support needs need to be separated from others, they have to be kept in their place in a segregated environment. And that is where they learn best, right? And it does not appear to matter at all whether the separate classes are called learning centers, special day classes, home groups, or any other euphemisms that you may have. They are still the places where students with extensive support needs are educated, mostly, and they are tourists in general education. They are not students in general education. And then when parents are viewed as problems, this is again another consistent theme that I noticed, that parents were not considered to be partners. There was a terrible imbalance, and parents are viewed as problems in many of the school districts surrounding my university. Parents were considered to ask for too much inclusion when their child is not ready. They were communicating too often with a general education teacher. They were asking for full inclusion with an aide, rejecting special education placement, asking for mainstreaming, bringing lawyers, advocates to IEP meetings, being rude or mean to the professionals. All these were considered, oh my God, these parents are so, not cooperative. And then, some of the quotes, you can see for yourself. She would email the teacher during instructional time and then get upset that the teacher has not responded. I told her that he's teaching and working with kids, but some parents want what they want. But that child was not ready, said an administrator. He was screaming, running all over the classroom, not ready for it. Who was ready for inclusion? I wondered, But But parents brought in this real aggressive lawyer and got what they wanted. A Starbucks card, yeah, some parents are nice, a gift card goes a long way with them. And these were the comments that I heard. And next, yeah, these are similar things. So what were the conclusions? Parents who advocated strongly for their children were not appreciated by the school professionals. Even when the IEP team decided on inclusion, the educational professionals sought ways to persuade the parents for a different outcome. And strong parent advocates got inclusion in paper only, and the reality was different. On the other hand, parents who did not advocate for inclusion did not get anything. So they were very happy placing the child in special ed. So who are those lucky kids who get included? It was obviously that behavior was the biggest, category here, criteria. Children who had the least behaviors got included. Who had nice and friendly parents got included. Who did not need physical support. Many general ed teachers said that they cannot handle medical needs, they cannot handle students going to the, who needed support in the bathrooms, who had to be, who needed any physical space in the classroom. Those were the things that were the problems. And these are some quotes. I would highlight, it's not the academics, it's the behavior. If the student has behavior problems, no matter what the level, I cannot have him in the class. Right? And then there was a paraeducator who said, any kind of difficult behavior, if we cannot redirect the students in their behaviors, then how can we be successful all the time? We're not God. The teachers want our students to be perfect. And our students are not perfect. And there's no reason why they should be. They are who they are, right? So the conclusions: student behavior, paraeducator availability, parent advocacy, parent likability, general education teachers preference. Paraeducator availability. A lot of the inclusion decisions are made on do we have enough staff to take them to the general ed? And if we do not have enough staff, a few students are selected and the others are left behind. Those are not the ways we should be making decisions. How are we selecting students based on, availability of staff? There's something wrong with the system. And there's something that made me very uncomfortable about how inclusion was happening. This was the worst finding in my study, that when a teacher does not want a student in the class, and we have people who are working in the system, and you can tell me if this is true, they can exaggerate the data on behavior. Small acts are made into aggressive acts. Standing up is considered to be disruptive behavior. Rig their class instruction during parent observation so that the class appears to be highly academic, and the parent will say, oh, I can't have my child in this class, which I cannot perform. They can provide very high academic work without modification and make the student fail, ensure that the student fails in the class. Encourage leaving the classroom at the slightest sign of behavior. All these were mentioned in my interview as things that teachers would do to manipulate the decisions made in the IEP. And for example, we look at the last quote. We can document everything to show that the student does not belong in general education. It is not hard. We can show that they don't benefit from instruction. They don't respond. They don't make friends. Once you know what to document, it is not hard to prove this. Right? And this is the reality that is happening in some of the, at least I want to say that it's in the classrooms around my district. And so there appears to be this dangerous pattern of using data to show a predetermined result, that students do not benefit from inclusion. So my question is, should the schools then include video documentation to prove the data? So, the data that is taken down by behaviorists, the data that is taken down by school teachers, that is not enough. If you are saying that my child is disrupting the class, show me a video. Right? Show me a video of that. Should we maybe include that as, if you're making placement decisions, we need more data than what is being presented in IEP. Paraeducators, the untold story. They are the most important actors in inclusion. They are the ones who take the student to the general education, but they are the least trained, right? They are too few to support all the included students. They are not privy to the IEP goals. This is what many of the paraeducators told me. We have not read the IEP. And how does that work?
I heard we aren't allowed to read the IEP, which that one kills me. Like, why do we have that if you're not giving access to the people who are working with the child?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't participate in IEP meetings.
Yes, yeah.
And so the teacher kind of acts like the gatekeeper of information, right? You go through me. You don't talk to the parent directly. You tell me and I will tell the parent. And I don't know how the information changes. You have
No, I just, this is great, parent education, that's my role, that's what I do for a living. So what I find this maybe talk about later, there's a huge role. Paraeducators are not teachers. Teachers they work under the supervision or direction of the teacher. So did you see anything in terms of what kind of supports teachers were providing to the parents?
Yeah, and not much.
That's it. They don't
Not
have
much.
certain plans. They are not trained on their connection. They are not given any kind of tools.
Exactly.
Successful in their role.
Exactly. So they're not necessarily invested in the success of the individual because many of the paraeducators are there as a job, and they have not been trained in the same philosophy, the pedagogies that the teachers have been trained in. And so the success depends on their attitude. Some paraeducators had a very good attitude. They said, we will do anything for the student. And some of them said, no, this is just a job for me and I'm here just to, make sure that my day goes well, right? And they're not included in IEP meetings, though they know the student the best. Yes.
So I did a training grant with 300 paraprofessionals over two different cohorts over 2 years. And we did 5 full days of training and paid them for it. And it was all around behavior and it was wonderful. And when they told us, they shared with us that they weren't invited to the IEP meeting. So I went to their directors and said, why aren't they invited to the meetings? And I was told that they're not invited to the meetings because at the IEP meeting, the decision is made for all the resources and supports. And so the decision on whether or not the student will have para support is determined at the IEP meeting. So they felt that it would be a conflict of interest to have the paras there when it was being decided whether or not they might have a job. And so that's why I was told they weren't.
Speech therapists are invited, and the speech therapy is determined. Occupational therapists are invited, and we determine services.
Well, I totally agree, but the reason why is because the parent contracts, some of their contracts are just tied to serving one child, and it's not long-term, so they're not hired on in the same way that teachers and speech therapists and stuff, and but they also didn't share the IEPs, so it's
contracts is an issue. Sometimes they have to be paid extra for it. But I don't want to hijack your presentation around this, but it's not just paras presence in IEP. It's the ongoing support. Paras can apply their skills if they're trained only if the teachers support them.
Right.
So I think those are bigger issues than their presence at IEP. IEP is important. So
and I think I noticed a pattern of information control. That is, paras have this really good information about what's happening in the classroom, but the teacher will not let that out because the information that goes out is what the teacher wants to tell the administrators and the parents.
It's one of the best presentations, what you have shared. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. It's such an honor for you.
I request you for the full presentation because it really talks a lot about what for the policy perspective. And see all that we are understanding is there is a huge resistance from the mainstream education for the inclusion. So it is being pushed by SDG goals, CRPD, the readiness of mainstream schools, teachers is not there. So they feel they have been overburdened. This is a reality in all countries. So it's really unwanted marriage.
Yes. I love that phrase. Oh my God. I love that phrase. Yeah.
That's how I
Yeah.
see it. It's really unwanted, and when it is forced upon, all
This is
this,
what happens.
these manifestations is crystal clear. This is how it would work.
Exactly.
This
Not
is the
willing,
future if you impose a law, right? Yeah.
When it is pushed from top down, this is what happens. So we are talking about two major issues. One is readiness of schools for inclusion and readiness of children for inclusion. So this readiness, we have to really look into that. Not that we have enough research on that, but I really request DISES to go deeper into the readiness and see that what exactly we mean by school readiness and the student readiness. Because if these two are not ready, forcing inclusion with the laws like IAPs or with the laws what we have in India, it is not. It is going to be a disaster. So that is what inclusion, in the name of inclusion, pebbles are polished, gems are dimmed. So nothing much happens. Even
That's a nice thing. Pebbles are polished and gems are clean.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
UNESCO is quite aware of this.
Yeah.
So that is what we see in the name of inclusion. Nothing much happens except a lot of dilution. And children with special education, many parents are now saying back to special education.
Because you learn more. You can
Yes,
focus,
because
yeah.
they don't want to see the children getting stagnated in the very global
In the
policy
global-
like inclusion.
yes.
So inclusion has become more political rather than
Right.
education.
Yes.
We really need to work a lot on school
We have to
readiness.
rethink what we want from inclusion. We have to rethink the definition of inclusion. We have to rethink how we are going to implement it so that from the bottom up, the assumptions about disability change.
And special education, special education, no, the compartments, no, like mainstream and special. I think first we have to break those walls.
Walls, yeah, yeah.
They're too heavy walls.
Is the time already? 5 minutes? Yeah, if you can move on. So you can just, there was something over here. Look at this. Most of the time I go to the class for 5 to 10 minutes and then we leave to walk in the field. I like inclusion. It gives me a chance to make my 10,000 steps. Yeah, okay. So these are some of the points that you brought up, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Next. And there's a big, all-pervading belief that special education is necessary. And this is even the strongest advocates of inclusion that I interviewed, some of the people who had led inclusive practices in their schools, they said special education is necessary in high school because vocational skills and other things cannot be done in gender led. Here, for example, in the elementary schools, yes, you can do the inclusion, but when you reach high school, the goals are different. You don't have time to waste on these things. And that is the thinking that, determines everything. And this is exactly what Dr. Rao was saying, separate credentials. We start with that. Gender-led is different from special ed. And then teachers don't know how to teach all the students. And then students cannot be educated then without the segregated classrooms. And then because they are educated in segregated classrooms, we need special education credentials, and it's different, and this vicious cycle goes on. And so just my conclusions. There is pervasive ableism. Back of the class inclusion is, I found it only a way to fool parents that their students are being included. Who is looking out for the students in our, how are we documenting actual inclusion? And I thought that the paraeducators are the biggest pathway that we have to inclusion, because we need to train the paraeducators, we need to make sure that they understand what their task is in inclusion, and that is the only way to make the law a reality. And of course, but
the paraeducators model may work in United States. it is not a very sustainable,
Model.
replicable model in countries like India. We are coming out with something like learning stations to support. I'll be sharing a lot after this conference with all of you. Because we also need to look at the economics of inclusion.
Yes.
It should not be too expensive.
Yes.
So this para-education model, it works only in few countries.
It works
It's
only
not
when
a-
it is, yeah.
So we have to look at the money aspect.
Absolutely,
Unless it's
absolutely.
cost
And
effective.
of course, in the US also, we are facing a lot of challenges with the over-reliance on paraeducators. So the effective utilizations of paraprofessionals or paraeducators is definitely bridge to inclusion. But when they become the teachers, these untrained people, good hearted, hardworking, they become the primary teachers. Students are deprived of competent instruction from teachers themselves. So over-reliance is without really thoughtful planning and utilization can be dangerous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my presentation.
Thank you.
Paraeducators is thank you for it.
So I kindly share the full presentation.
Yes.
I would like to
It's
use
very
it.
good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. How do I share it?
Bhavani can share it.
Bhavani can, she has it in her email.
And you
so-
used Elizabeth Hasler-Steve.
Yes.
She's a colleague, and she said one thing which is so important, which relates to what you said. She says, when the students go into the general education classroom, they are students first, their labels come after. So the general education teachers need to own them. The mainstream people need to, these are our students, they are not special, there's a different kind of people who are coming to our class. They are
I think
students.
too much of labeling.
Labeling
We
is
should move away
a,
from
yeah,
labels.
exactly. When you start putting labels, then they become somebody else's responsibility. The moment you say they are all students, are yeah.
Diverse needs is the way.
Can you restrict the platforms? Yeah, because sometimes you can't see the slides.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can definitely. Sure. You can all move front if you want because there are just a handful of us here. All right, so the next one. Let's get going. We may not even need the mic if we
everyone moves forward, but
Yeah,
in case they don't, you never know.
Yeah,
Because
the four of us,
some-
so we'll
some
be
people try to
That's fine.
encourage
That's
the
fine.
use of a mic at all times.
Next presentation.
One, right?
It's not.
This is one. Kind of.
Neha, can you come and tell her which one? There are several. Okay, that's fine.
Let's talk about the 13 July PPT. Okay. 13 July. Is my video here? Yeah, there's a video also.
All right, we're just waiting for our presentation to be projected. Very nicely. All right. So the kind of title says it all. I'll just introduce ourselves briefly, just our names so that you know who's who. I am Ritu Chopra from University of Colorado, Denver. And Neha, you want to go next?
Hi, a very warm namaste from me to all of you. I'm Neha Sharma. I'm the Director of Programs for the not-for-profit organization by the name of Dipalya, which works for children. We'll talk more about that. Next to me is Dr. Adarsh Sharma.
I'm Adarsh Sharma. I'm professor in early childhood education and presently a freelance consultant.
Good afternoon. I'm Kalpana Das. I'm rehabilitation educator.
At Dipalya.
At Dipalya, yes.
Yes. All right. Next slide, please.
Thank you. So it's still morning though, because we started our day very early, so it feels like it's afternoon. So thank you for all the others who also joined in. We move to our presentation. The title, as we all can see, is Enabling Inclusion for Specially Able Children in a Very Special Geography, which is the urban slum communities of the capital for the country where we are today, right? So we're talking about Delhi and the scenario of urban slums. Urban slums are the resettlement colonies, and it's a prominent problem where people migrate from rural communities where there are opportunities and scopes which are very limited and restricted. And they come to a setup, which is an urban slum, where the services, the intervention, the scope, the provision, the facilities, all of it is very, very restricted and limited. Next slide, please.
Next slide. It didn't move.
So I'll speak about Dipalya. The organization Dipalya, which is also the next slide after this, is a 44-year-old not-for-profit organization. It is a non-government organization that has been working on child as a major thematic area. And with a group of children that we work, especially able children is also one group amongst the children that we work. The other group are children who are destitute under difficult circumstances. Amongst them are also children who are from low-income group and socially devastating conditions.
Next
Right. So these are the major programs that we have, because over the period of time when we expanded, we thought just giving provision to a child would not make it different, but it's the family as a whole which requires intervention. And we've also started our programs as we scaled up to include the family members, and that is hence we give provisions for income generation, women empowerment, health services, environmental sustainability programs, and of course we'll be talking for today's presentation on the rehabilitation of children who are specially able. Next slide, please. So these are the broader areas that we work with. Since we'll be sharing the slides, these are numbers and stats for the organization. We'll pass it to you and you can refer to them. The next one. Right. So why differently able? For a not-for-profit organization to be doing a work of this sort comes only when there is not ample work happening on ground by the policymakers or by the government. So the rationale, as we understood, urban slum communities are the marginalized communities, and children with special needs are the most hard-hit, group amongst that communities. Because not just the provisions are limited, but because of their special abilities, they are always seen as limitation by their families. So the few rationale that we thought of when we started was severe social exclusion and rejection. It was always a stigma and social discrimination that was attached to this group. Infrastructural barriers, which sadly still exist in our society and country. 5 times more likeliness for the specially able child to abandon education, leading because of the dropout, because of the other factors, social inclusion and discrimination. The possibility of them abandoning the education was 5 times more than any other condition. Lack of affordable yet high quality services. So even if there is a provision for the services, the quality would really be compromised. And if the quality was really high as to what was required, it was not affordable for them. There was lack of support system at home because clearly, because of the stigma attached, there will be a rejection. Families would be in a state of denial to be able to accept the child as what they are. And for that reason, there was no support at home. Also because the communities that we work with are urban slums community, which means both the parents would have to go to work and they would work as daily wages to make the earning, and that is how the family would survive and sustain. Now, if one of them would have to stay back to look for the child, the possibility for the survival for all of them would really be in question. So that makes sense that it's not out of choice that they would lock the child at home and go to work, but because there was no support system, they migrated from a rural community and they did not brought the entire family, along to be able to take care of this child. Unawareness, of course, leading to poor access to policies. Now, every time they move, here in India, we have Aadhaar cards for a unique ID for each citizen. When they move back, they have their Aadhaar identity for that region. Mostly, they would not even get that made. So when they move, they would not have the right document. They would not know which is the right place to go to be able to get better linked to the policies and services. So because of that, the next slide, thank you. So because of that, in 1987, we started with the little knowledge at that time that the organization and people had. They started the work with the specially abled from urban slums of Delhi. By the time, as you see on screen, there was a center which came in place. There was a time when we were also doing the services on wheels. Like we would carry the mobile van, would go identify people, give them education on wheel in the communities that they are located at. And that is how we evolved. And it was only 2014 that the Rehabilitation Foundation, which we have Dr. Didu Chopra and Dr. Adarsh, that this organization came and extended its support to Dipalia and thought of bringing up a unit which is completely dedicated to specially able children so that services could be better, sustainable, and can also be scaled up. So for the next slide, I also give Rhythm ma'am this opportunity to talk.
Sure. So just to sum up what Neha has already shared, the bigger organization, Dipalia, is a very well-established nonprofit. It's been doing amazing work. So Sambhav is this unit, which again, Dipalia had already been doing all work around focused on the students with the children with disabilities, and particularly those from slum areas. They have already been doing it. And Sambhav came into being, this unit was renamed Sambhav in 2014, and we have some role in that. So next slide, please. First, we will explain what Sambhav means, and then we'll tell you what our role is. It's very interesting. There is a saying, what is there in a name? But I feel name has a lot of important things in it. It gives you identity, and it gives you prove yourself to your name. So we call the center, which was started in 2014, as Sambhav. And Sambhav is a word which is a Hindi word derived from a Hindi word which means possible. Possible. And when we say possible, the mission of Sambhav is to empower children with disabilities to realize their powers and enable them to get really into the mainstreaming, realizing their potential. And that is what it says, ensuring opportunities and enhancing possibilities for the differently able. And if you have the Dipalia's folder with you, the flyover, it says enhancing self-reliance. So we are aligning it even to the Dipalia's motto. Right. Absolutely. So it was named by us, the children of Laj Rani and Jagdish Raj, two educators. And my parents, my father passed away in 1982 and my mother passed away in 2012. And they were both educators, not super wealthy people. They were well off, comfortably off. But they decided, they educated us, all of us, 4 children, she's the oldest, I'm the youngest, and we have 2 siblings between us. But whatever their estate was, when my mother passed away, in her will, this is what she said. She said that she wanted this money to be utilized, whatever is left over, to be utilized for educational purposes, and she will let her children decide what those purposes are, where that money needs to go. So we formed a foundation, and my brother, who's an attorney, and what he did was, whatever the funds were there, my parents left, he added the same amount. So whatever, I don't want to mention, it was not much, as I'm saying, because we are not super wealthy people, but he matched that money. And the way it runs is it's pretty much self-sustaining in terms of when it comes to funding. So 80% of the funding comes from the interest that is on the original capital that we had invested, and rest of it, Dipalia is the one that kind of, they put in the remaining 20%. So the original capital, the original funds that we started with, my brother uses, he's a lawyer, he uses the term corpus. The corpus is still there, and the money just from time to time, whenever there's a shortfall, we all, typically my brother does it, we put in the extra money, but the original corpus remains. So this is what I'm trying to emphasize here is, it's doable. We can do this. You don't have to be the Birlas and the Tatas and the, to be able, Ambanis to be able to do something like this. you can do it. Other, normal people like us, regular people can do it.
Thank you. And as Dr. Ritu just rightly pointed out, so the Large Disease Foundation and their support came to us in 2014, but the center has been functional since 1995. Right. This is the set of services because we believe in a completely holistic, integrated approach to the child. So when they're coming to the center, we believe that they shouldn't be just restricted to a particular set of services. And so what you see on screen right now are the services that we offer to them. The center, definitely, as I said in my previous slide, that the support system that the family brings in is very, very limited. The center offers care and holistic development to the child, to all the children who are coming to us. Linkages to the public schemes and policy, again, which I briefed in my previous slide, because there was lack of awareness, lack of documentation, lack of relevant documents that they carry with us. So our team makes it possible and facilitate them to get the documents ready and then link them. Education, now when I talk about education, it includes the special education and the remedial education, mainstreaming them and higher education for children, vocational training for things like computer literacy. There's also vocational training. I'll be circulating these sets of booklets, the catalog. So what we also do in largely populated country like ours, when we talk about, so these will be in circulation, and I'll also keep a copy of the reception if you want to later see. So what the job opportunities and income generating opportunities for individuals as a whole are very, very restricted. Unlike major Western countries, in my interactions that I saw from yesterday and today, there are a lot of opportunities, but the number of people required for them or the number of people applying for those posts would be very, very limited. It's in reverse when it comes to India. So the opportunities would be really, really scarce, and people applying for those would be very huge in number. So in a situation like that, even if a child is qualified and highly professionally qualified, they would still be looking for the right job for them. The right job in terms of their suiting their skills, their professional, the dignity that it requires. And so we also thought that, why not give them another substitute? Give them another option where they can also initiate something of their own. So with the vocational trainings that we provide to our children, we are also training them on making products which are eco-friendly products. And these includes scented candles, jute bags, paper bags, a lot of the accessories, that we also saw yesterday for display and sale outside. So a lot of those, we also train them so that in case they are moving back to the village that they hailed from, they would still have something, they would have the skill, the knowledge, the technique, and the necessary tools which are locally available to be able to create something and start a small micro enterprise of their own, if at all nothing works out. Right, so to get the children, now I'm talking about not just one sect in Delhi, which is the urban community of Sanjay Colony, but also 27 adjoining communities. And now these are not just 2-digit number, because each of these communities would have a population of around 10,000 families. So we are identifying communities as I speak. We are also going and closely observing and identifying children wherever they are, because as I said, it is because of the stigma attached, it's very difficult to reach out to the right person in the right house and then get them linked to our program. Because again, which is unlikely at the Western countries, people don't open up. They are always in a state of denial because of the social exclusion and unacceptability. So we have our free transportation that reaches out to these 27 communities and bring the children to our center and then rightfully drop them back to the communities back. Parent education is the crux of what we do at Sambhav, because they are a major partner and stakeholder when we talk about sustainability. If we are not educating the parent, we are not changing we are not getting the right mindset for this to be able to scale up and for us to, and for the children to carry the mission forward with them. So we focus a lot on parent education. We have parents meeting And whenever we feel that, the parents are not able to come, we have home visits. So the educator would go to them at their setup, speak to them, speak to the child, have the meeting right at the setup which they are comfortable at. Health and nutrition. So there's also a provision of nutrition because again, in a low middle income country like India, health and malnutrition is also a major problem. And for the child, we make sure that at least when they're coming at the center, they're rightly fed. So we also give provision for proper nutrition at the center. Alongside, we give a lot of health education to the family. So there's a lot of nutritional education that goes to the parents and the family, so that with the low cost setup that they have, they are able to have the right kind of food that is required. So it's not how much you are eating, but it's what you are eating should also be right to be able to give supplement, macro and micronutrients to your child. Next slide, please. Okay, once again, go back. So in this, whatever I've just spoken, you'll see a glimpse of the project, the center, and we started from the very community. So it starts from the community that we take the transportation to and pick the child from to the services. So thank you. There are a few quick slides just right after this, which will complement the thing that you did. And nowhere are we trying to contest or say that we are into the best practices. But considering the kind of availability of resources, of provision of individuals as faculties, and considering the status for a not-for-profit organization, whatever best at that moment when we started, we could do. And so far, we are trying to put that to wherever, at forums like these, wherever we are learning something, we try to put that in and incorporate it. For our services, we make sure to give it, as I said, an integrated setup to provide it with as many services, as many facilities and interventions as possible to us. And the rationale that we started, so for all the problem rationale that I briefed in the previous slide, for the taboo attached leading to denial, we are doing a lot of advocacy and awareness amongst not just the parents, but also community at large, at the community level. Linkages to public programs, as I said, we were getting them documented at the government portal where they're registered and they can easily avail services. We are constantly following up with the parents once linked to make sure that they get the services. So it's not just, as I said earlier, It's not just bringing them to the table, but also constantly ensuring that we are, we are understanding and we are seeing that they are progressing with what the direction that we've given to them. Getting specialized faculty for the children from the urban slum. So we may also ensure wherever there's need for a physical therapist or a speech therapist or an interpreter, special educators, we make sure whatever is possible, we link them and we have them get those services. Individualized plan to bridge the large educational gap. So as I was saying, no matter if the class setup would be, as you also saw in the video, it's heterogeneous, but there will be an individual education plan for each child who is there at the class by the teacher, by the special educator who will be there. Since the nature of the population is very migratory, which means they are very prone to changing location. So if they have better job opportunities in Sanjay Colony or one of those 27 communities that I said, they are here. But possibilities are also large that in 6 months' time, when this site where they are working as a daily wager shuts down, they might have to move to another new locality. And that is why all the parent education that we are giving would make sure that they would look for a center or a service or they'll stay connected to us so that we regular follow-up, our teachers and educators make sure that the follow-up is regular with them so as to not drop them. Right? Perseverance among caregivers and parents and limited opportunities for mainstream are also one of the major challenges that were observed because mainstreaming and opportunities in general in large, hugely populated countries like ours are very, very scarce. So we constantly make sure, we constantly try and get linked to income generating companies, private or public, or there's a startup provision, we get them associated where they can get loans and can have a setup. So that sort of provision also we make sure. These are again the same services. We can move to the next slide. Okay, so this is a age-wise demography. Most of our population, 75% of them are children who are 18 and below from urban community, but once enrolled, till the time they don't want to drop the center or the service or they're not migrating, we make sure that they are with us and we are giving them the services what they're wanting, unless they are mainstreamed or they themselves want to drop out or migrate. So now these at the right that you see are the center-based and home-based. A lot of our services for children are also where they are severely, the scope is very severe and they're not able to come to our center. We make sure to impart them services at their setup at the home. Next slide. These are the categories that we are working so far. So developmental difficulties, locomotor impairments, speech and hearing impairment, visual impaired, and multiple disabilities are the areas and the specifications that we are currently working with. So these are the quick glimpses from the center. So we try making sure that the center is completely child-friendly where the child wants to come. And I'm not sure if one has a orientation to how urban slum, a typical house setup would be at an urban slum, but it's clearly not something so colorful and bright and child-friendly. So we try making the center in a way where the child wants to come, and they are the ones who are insisting, the parents to allow them to come, and they would be eager to come every morning. So we have our batches we have 2 batches, morning and evening. In two batches, we have the children coming to the center. The next one. These are the few glimpses from the meal preparation and the meals that we are serving to them, computer literacy, safe and assisted transportation from the communities that we're working with. Next one, please. So we are also constantly, as I said, whatever we are learning and from our experience and from the trainings that we undergo, we make sure to give them the best. And that is why we are adapting to innovative and participatory teaching tools alongside a lot of physical, cognitive, and emotional well-being. So we have a psychologist who is also linked to the center. So that not just to come to the children, but also to the parents, because a lot of the time they see this, as a curse on themselves. So there's a psychologist who will constantly do individual counseling, family counseling with them to make sure that the emotional framework, the psychological framework is good to be able to socially do justice to the child. The next one, please. So these were the home base when I said the home base, and the picture on your right top that you see is a typical setup for a urban slum house. So it's just a one room where you'll have a kitchen and the bed and all 8 family members living together in just one room. And so this is the sessions that are happening at the home. So this is the home-based education, the physiotherapy, and the skill building. So the catalogs that you see on your tables. So these are the trainings that's given to them on that. The next one. Right. So not just like through forums like these that we learn, but also through a lot of internal and inter and intra meetings, and constantly reviewing the progress of the project so as to evolve and so as to include things which are new. We learn from each other and peer organizations that are also doing the same work. So there's a lot of review that is happening. There's a lot of teachers training, capacity building for them. To be able to not just give them, but also listen to them, their challenges, their experiences, their good stories, stories that we all can learn and feel motivated from. So these are the sessions which we are doing regularly, that we are doing the performance of the project. Parents' education and awareness are glimpses from that. And moreover, ensuring that it's a human right for us to treat everybody with dignity. And for a child, it's not just the right for education and equality, but they have the whole right to enjoy their childhood, which is dignified and worth remembering, like how we remember our childhood when we grow up. The next slide, and I'll be very quick now. So our outcomes are so far since 1995, we worked with 4,300 families with differently able on the multiple aspects and how we evolved. So for all and every active care intervention. We've trained 1,000 children on vocational training for promoting employability and livelihood, as I said. More than 300 children were mainstreamed to formal education. More than 100 of them were linked to income-generating private companies, and inculcated components of psychosocial counseling, which I just spoke about, for the mental upliftment of the child and the family as whole. The next one, please. These are the few testimonies. You see 3 people on screen. Of course, you can consent from them before sharing this here. One of them is our beneficiary, Kushbu, who has been associated with us since 2013. And inspired by what we do at Sambhav, she now is undergoing a course in special education and wants to be a special educator herself. The next to it, we have Mrs. Santoshi, who is a parent to a special child. And she talks about how it helped, how the center, the provision, the facilities have helped her. And she's also been associated with the center for 10 years. And she says, quoting, "I couldn't have imagined that my child will be able to study, travel to school, go on picnic, and do all of that any other child would do." Unquote. So the last one, the testimony, is Mr. Ashish, who is the team lead at Amazon, where we are also placing our children at NCR Delhi. He's been saying that we've been shortlisting candidates with Sambhav since 2019, and the children, the Sambhav, were able to perform job with utmost sincerity and dedication, and they understand the work and had knowledge on accurate data capturing. The next slide, please. My second slide says, when everyone is included, everyone wins. So it's a win-win for all of us if we value and have all of us together. And I end with my last slide of the day, for today. So this is the sum of the center there that you see. And this is a child with the dream and the vision in his hand. He wants to be a cricketer. So with that, I end my PPT for today, but I also would like to give an open invitation for all of you who are traveling via Delhi. And in case you have some spare time, please do visit our center. It's around 25 to 30 kilometers away from the airport. And to sum it all, I give it to Dr. Ditsu Chopra.
Actually, she said it all. I think that what you need to remember is the context. It's yesterday, the opening session was amazing. The keynote was amazing. But you heard a parent who was an advocate, comes from privilege, has the education, not the knowledge. The students and families that are being supported they are from the slums. Daily wagers, social stigma is, think of all those things. And that's why I want to thank actually Deepalia on behalf of our family, Deepalia, and all these wonderful staff. You know, we meet them very regularly. That's part of the accountability and monitoring, not monitoring, just listening to them, what they are doing. And they are doing both of them, Kalpana, and they have amazing job, and the whole team. So we really will thank you all for coming. And thank you. We do that for professional remote monitoring, and I do it.
One of the last thing that I missed was there's too much but I have to cut it short and put this in the time card, which also I overshoot it, by the way. So there's a scanner in case you want to know about the organization. You can just scan it from your mobile phones, and you can know more about the center and where we are placed, so that you can come to our center, you know, whenever you are in the
Take the questions if there are any.
If there are questions, we are happy to answer. Yes,
I have a question. You are a rock star.
You guys are amazing and so inspiring. I'm just in awe. So thank you for making our world a better place. Do you all have gangs here in the slums like we do in the United States? Criminal gangs that are that do bad things, sell drugs and slavery and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, we call them something else.
So yes, we definitely do have, and not just here, but there are goods and not so goods in our community. And I feel that if not channelized well, anybody would do that. So in the urban slums that we are working, we make sure we have a special program by the name of Slum Basketball Program, which means the free time that children have after coming from school and in between, they were using that time when we did a survey of the area. So it was the time in between that they had free, and in which they would go in for bad company and they would learn these things and they would do pickpocketing. There were a lot of juvenile cases. You know, there were incidences where they would even try attempting murder for somebody, because they were misled. But we make sure that we are channelizing that time, and through sports and recreational activities, we are channelizing and putting them into productive things. So those are one of the ways.
I just want to respond to your question. It's a huge issue. Urban poverty associated with crime is very common. Rural poverty is not associated with crime because there is no cultural deprivation there. One of the studies with Norway, in Bangalore slums, we noticed that after children started coming to an inclusive school, over a period, it's a long-term study, it's a period of 10 years, we saw the crime rate came down drastically because children were changing their parents and they prevented their fathers getting into criminal activities, and they refused money earned through crime. Crime was a profession, and mothers were alcoholic in the slums. So they refused to stay in a house where their parents were criminals. They had celebrations like my father came from the jail. Today my mother prepared sweets. So that was, our teachers were confused. They were asking me, we really don't know how to respond when a child says, oh, we are very happy today because my father came on bail from jail and my mother prepared some sweets. And they were confused, how to respond to that situation. But crime was very closely linked, but with education can be very good vaccination to prevent the crime. So the longitudinal study shows that we can prevent crime by going for inclusion.
Any other questions for us for sample presentation?
I would just like to say, we are in India and yet they are not aware of the great work that you are doing. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm really very impressed, and
like you said, it's mission possible, not mission impossible.
Yes.
And where there is a will, there's always a way, and you all have the heart also in it. So hats off to all of you. Like, I was very, very impressed, and I think you should do more of this sharing because we come across so many people who say we want to do, but how do we do? I think you should be the role model.
As I said, that yes, we need financial resources, but if we strategically use whatever we have and combine resources, it is possible. And as I say, guru se garab bharta hai. Every drop matters, and every drop adds up to the water. Yes.
Hats off for your parents for this noble vision, and also hats off to children who have really kept their vision, their dreams.
Yeah, and then I say hats off to all these wonderful
Hats off to them too.
Yes, so it's
I think the intentions were good of the family, but even if we had given whatever funding little funding we are getting, it wouldn't have turned into this.
Very dedicated.
But we
Actually, they really deserve.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need the past now. No one are doing hard bits.
And I think my brother, whose name we don't say, he was the real initiator of getting the whole thing organized.
Yes, he's a great soul.
Personally, of us could have.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's amazing.
Thank you.
And you promise this can happen.
Yeah. Thank you. So I just sort of. Yeah, yeah. Of course, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
ವೇದಾಂತ ಹೇಳಿ
ಇಲ್ಲ ಇವ್ರು ಬಂದ ಛಾಯ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಮನೆಯವ್ರು ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
You want me to copy this? It's up to you. That's the presentation. So just open it up.
I was already saying.
Just make it big.
my study with adopting all technology for homework, for practice, for quizzes, all of those different things, because accounting is a very specific and complex subject matter to teach anyway, right? It takes a special person. But these ladies, some were just getting education to get married, but others really wanted to work and learn how to be independent. And they really liked accounting, and they liked the fact that taxation was going to be new in Dubai. So they wanted to learn. And so I was committed to have them pass my class, but not just be passed through the class, actually learn. And so my class is using technology at 80% pass rate on homework assignments, 90% on assignments, which were like practices, and 87% pass rate in the course. Whereas the two professors that were not using technology, they were not going to adopt all of this new technology. They were going to stick with their handouts. They had a 67% pass rate on homework, 80% pass rate on assignments, and a 72% pass rate of the course. All right? Next slide. Now, in conclusion, we understand that technology is not perfect, but in this scenario, with these three different instructors, including myself and the other two, it showed that the students were more successful when there was technology that addressed their learning disabilities. And then for the other students who were mainstream, it taught them that everyone could be included. So a lot of the ostracizing of those that needed extra help stopped, it ceased, and they were more inclusive. And so the universal design really worked. Next slide. It worked so much that I created, first of its kind, a career path with Ford Motor Company of the UAE. So Ford invited the ladies and we came in to look at what if they went to non-governmental jobs. Most of the young people there actually work for governmental jobs, and those biases and how they were treated with the social discrimination and wanting to hide was not really in traditional companies, that originate from other countries like Ford Motor Company. In addition to that, the ladies have rights to drive in Dubai. And so a lot of them were excited about the fact that they could work for a car manufacturer like Ford. And so I created an accounting club, and the path that it is called, it was Campus to Career Path for her in colleges, okay? And next, this was me and the accounting club. And some of those ladies now have jobs at Ford, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi. And so that is my study about accounting, teaching accounting, addressing the different technology in my courses taught in the UAE. Next slide. These are my references, and I have something for everybody. Next slide. So if you have any questions, I'm going to come around and give you some treats from Dubai. If you know, Dubai was, before it became an oil country, they had two exchanges. There were pearls and there were dates. So I bought you some dates.
You were hoping for the pearls.
Oh, well, I'm still waiting for my pearl. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
Using a different approach to teaching, are you able to do this without having to seek permission from us? In terms of
implementing these sorts of initiatives in that course, were you able to do that fairly autonomously, or did you need to get permission from any superiors? Because it clearly was quite a different approach to teaching in your university, and I just wanted to know if there were any barriers that you faced in terms of doing this sort of change.
Okay, so yes, there are barriers and I did have to get permission, but from the business side of me, I'm used to proposals, right? So I don't just ask. I have the soup, the nuts, everything with it, right? So I'm asking, but I'm really telling you I need the funds that I know you have to accommodate these young ladies, right? And so, yes, I met barriers, especially from the other two instructors. Let me just say they were male, okay? And it really made them feel like I was showing them up, right? Because they were just giving the young ladies handouts. And then the handouts were not relative to the UAE, it was an American dollar. You know, they were using whatever examples came out of textbooks, basically making copies. So when I came, I'm like, hey, like, why would you not show them something in their own currency? You know, and so it was a lot of barriers. However, me being an African American female and coming from America, I know what those challenges are. But the way I explained it to the head, which was Emirati, was that in order to have this next population of business leaders, you're going to have to adopt something different and incorporate women. And once I said that and got Ford to sign on, it was like, okay, she can have whatever she wants as long as we get the learning outcome. So yes, challenges, but it kind of worked once we showed them the learning outcome.
I mean, what you have done is something very doable. It is not a very high technology, but very doable. So my question is, the teachers, the faculty there, after seeing this, if you can do it, they can also do it in their classrooms. Whether any such sharing of interest, expression of interest came from the other faculty?
Not until COVID. So,
Very surprising.
From America, we've been using McGraw-Hill Connect, Pearson's My Accounting Lab, all of those resources. So like you said, it was very easy. But it was the learning curve. And what I've learned is that if it's not the way they think with other faculty, if it's not broken, then why am I fixing it? And so the fact that they would need to go through training to actually know the technology was what was the major hindrance, right? So for final exams, or what we call invigilation, they actually said, well, if everybody's not doing it, then we're not going to do it. That was where the university went. So although this was easier, the students could get the grade immediately. It was a different bank of problems. It's not just our learning. We didn't have to do it. So I actually paper graded final exams because everyone did not want to adjust. However, when COVID came, guess what happened? When the students could not come to campus and you needed to still facilitate a course, then that's when they wanted to implement the technology. But by that time, I was going back to America. Anybody else? Did everybody get their dates?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, so thank you for listening. And that's why I'm here. Most people say, well, what is an accountant doing here? But this was my experience.
We need to do it.
And my brother.